ਵੈਲਕਮ ਟੂ ਦਿਸ ਐਪੀਸੋਡ ਆਫ ਦ ਹਰਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਸ਼ੋ। ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਸੈਗਮੈਂਟ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਜਗੇਸ਼ਵਰ ਦਾਸ ਨਾਲ। ਇੱਕ ਰਿਟਾਇਰਡ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਨੇ, ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ ਗਲੋਬਲ ਕਲਰਜੀ ਐਸੋਸੀਏਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਟ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਕਬੀਰ ਐਸੋਸੀਏਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਟ ਨੇ। ਅੱਜ ਦਾ ਮੁੱਦਾ ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਨੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜੀਵਨ ਦਾ ਮਕਸਦ ਕੀ ਹੈ, ਵਾਟ ਇਜ਼ ਦ ਪਰਪਸ ਆਫ ਲਾਈਫ ਐਂਡ ਐਜ਼ ਅ ਹਿਊਮਨ ਬੀਇੰਗ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਦਾ ਧਿਆਨ ਰੱਖਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ, ਧਰਮ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਸਿਖਾਉਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ 'ਤੇ ਕਬੀਰ ਜੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਇਸ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰਤੀ ਕੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ, ਇਸ ਬਾਰੇ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਬਾਤਾਂ ਹੋਣਗੀਆਂ। ਸਵਾਗਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਜਗੇਸ਼ਵਰ ਦਾਸ ਦਾ। ਵੈਲਕਮ ਟੂ ਦ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ।
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So when we talk about the purpose of life, ultimately any human being who has come over here, there is a purpose associated to it. But as human beings today probably have forgotten that purpose. So could you take us on this journey of enlightenment whereby we come to know why we are here and what we should do?
Yes, certainly. I mean, human beings are beyond the animals, as you know.
Right.
And if we ask ourselves, well, what is the purpose of life? We have to begin to think, why are we here? How did we get here? And then our goal.
Right.
Eventually, our goal is to go beyond what we are as material beings. Because we have to use our intelligence.
Right.
Our intelligence tells us there's a purpose in life. That purpose has to do with the spirit, because we know and intuitively we know that we are the spirit. And if we're the spirit, there has to be a source of the spirit. And as human beings, we want to know that source.
Right.
And it is to try to find that source that we have religion and all the various practices.
Right.
Kabir Sahib has said, Desh virana hai, rahna nahi, ya desh virana hai. So that tells us that this is a foreign country.
Right.
We come,
and
we
go.
live, we die, and we go.
Right.
And he likens this to the birds. They're everywhere all day. Nighttime, they go and sit on a tree and rest. At daybreak, they fly away. They have no ownership to the tree.
Right.
So it was a temporary resting place. Just so this world is a temporary resting place for the body, for material being. But this body is also a resting place for the soul.
Right.
And the soul enters the body, lives for a while in the body, changes the body at death, and goes into another form. So eventually what we have to know, why is all this happening?
Right.
And Kabir Sahib again has said, Amar lok se aaye bande, fir amar pur jana hai. We have come from the eternal.
Right.
And we have to go back to that eternal.
Right.
And so it's essentially, this is the goal of life.
Right. So this world, this earth is a temporary place, as you have said, Kabir ji says about it, but we human beings have started considering it to be a permanent place. And when we don't understand the basic concept, and that is the reason that what chaos we are facing in the world today, it existed earlier also. Of course, there are good and bad people in all the time.
Yes.
But again, why do we think that this is a permanent place, and what can be done to change that thinking that no, you are here as a guest, not as a a permanent person?
Yes. This is based on the fact that there's something called avidya.
Right.
Ignorance. And this doesn't mean ignorance in a negative way.
Right.
It means not knowing the reality. And what is the reality that we have to know? And in the teachings of India, let's say the Advaita Vedanta teaching, everything is illusory. Everything is illusory for the simple reason that nothing is everlasting. We are illusory because we think of reality. You are here, and I am here. This is real.
Right.
But time will come. We are changing, and we will not be here.
Right.
Everything around us, including the earth, is always changing.
Right.
So what we see as reality is not actually reality.
Right.
It's a transforming, changing thing.
Right.
And that which goes through changes cannot be the reality.
Right.
But this changing phenomena of the world is on the basis of a reality.
That's right.
That reality is what we call God. And unless we know that is unchanging reality on which the changing phenomena is occurring,
right,
we will keep on believing we are here permanently.
Right.
But, I mean, it cannot be so.
Right.
Because whatever is changing or ceases to be cannot be reality.
Absolutely, you're right. But how does that, this philosophy, because everything is changing, everyone knows, but how does this philosophy has an impact on our day-to-day life? What do we need to learn from this, this truth that we are not here for permanently?
Yes. Well, first of all, we may have to get a teacher who knows.
Right.
Okay. This is why the system of the guru and disciple system is working out that way. So we have a teacher who is able to teach us the reality or the truth from the untruth.
Right.
And in all spiritual life, we're seeking truth and to be away from the untruth.
Right.
And so in order to make this practical, we have the teacher, or we follow scriptures and then begin to observe this in our life.
Right.
One of the big downfall of people following a path is that they give up. They don't persist.
Right.
Or they think that they know enough and they don't have to do any more.
Right.
And that's never the case. As human beings, we have limited knowledge.
Right.
We don't have absolute knowledge. And therefore, we must have that inquisitive spirit or inquiring mind.
Right.
So we can keep on learning. And if we don't keep on learning, we stagnate.
Right. So what is to be learned and how to have that inquisitiveness, what you're talking about? We'll talk about this, Dr. Saab, after this short break. We'll come back and learn more from you as to what is this path to enlightenment. Thank you for your time.
Yes.
So we'll just go for a short break and come back. So Dr. Saab ने जो साडे नाल गलबात कीती हैगी ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੁਣ ਤੱਕ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸਮਝ ਆ ਜਾਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਧਰਮ ਜੋ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਸਕ੍ਰਿਪਚਰਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਜੋੜਦੇ ਨੇ ਉਸ ਰਿਐਲਿਟੀ ਨਾਲ। ਅਸੀਂ ਸਮਝਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਕੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਪਰਮਾਨੈਂਟਲੀ ਰਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ, ਲੇਕਿਨ ਇਹ ਇੱਕ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮਿਥ ਹੈ ਇਹ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਗਲਤ ਪਾਸਿਆਂ ਤੇ ਰਹਿ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ। ਇਸ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਸਮਝਣ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਹੈਗੀ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਤਾਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਗੈਸਟ ਆਏ ਹੈਗੇ ਹਾਂ, ਕੁਝ ਦੇਰ ਲਈ ਅਸੀਂ ਰਹਿਣਾ ਤੇ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਅਸੀਂ ਚਲੇ ਜਾਣਾ ਹੈ। ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਕ੍ਰਿਪਚਰਸ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਗਾਈਡ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ। ਇਹ ਗੁਰੂ ਸ਼ਿਸ਼ਿਆ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇੱਕ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਸੀ ਚੱਲਦਾ ਸੀ, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੁਰੂ ਜੋ ਸੀ ਇੱਕ ਇਗਨੋਰੈਂਸ ਤੋਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਬਾਹਰ ਕੱਢ ਕੇ ਇਹ ਦੱਸਦਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੋਏ ਰਿਐਲਿਟੀ ਕੀ ਹੈ। ਫਿਰ ਮੈਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਸਵਾਲ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਫਿਲਾਸਫੀ ਹੈ ਇਸ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਰੋਜ਼ਮਰਾ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੀ ਸਿੱਖ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਇਗਨੋਰੈਂਸ ਖਤਮ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਅਗਿਆਨ ਖਤਮ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਗਿਆਨ ਮਿਲਦਾ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਗਿਆਨ ਹੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਫਾਊਂਡੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ। ਕੁਝ ਪਲਾਂ ਤੱਕ ਵਾਪਸ ਆਨੇ ਤੇ ਹੋਰ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਲੈਣੇ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਜਗੇਸ਼ਵਰ ਦਾਸ ਤੋਂ। ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਜਗੇਸ਼ਵਰ ਦਾਸ ਨਾਲ। ਤੇ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਜਗੇਸ਼ਵਰ ਦਾਸ ਦਾ ਇਹ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਇਨਕੁਇਜ਼ਿਟਿਵਨੈਸ ਜੋ ਹੈ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਹੈ। ਕਿਹੜੀ ਉਹ ਕੁਆਲਿਟੀਜ਼ ਇੱਕ ਸੀਕਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋਣੀਆਂ ਚਾਹੀਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ, ਆਓ ਇਸੇ ਸੰਬੰਧ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਜਗੇਸ਼ਵਰ ਦਾਸ ਨਾਲ। Yes, sir. So before the break, you had said that you need to be inquisitive. You ought to have that eagerness. So what are the qualities? What to do to be that in a state of inquisitiveness?
Yes, certainly. This is laid out very well in this book called the Brahmnirupan that I just recently published.
Right.
So I'll have to refer to the book.
Sure.
Thank you. There are 7 attributes, according to Kabir, of that seeker who is ardently seeking to know.
Right.
And the first one is called swati, or a deep concentration.
Right.
Without deep concentration, where we shut out every negative thing and external things and go within.
Right.
Only within can we experience God. So that concentration is a great attribute.
Right.
The second attribute is sahaja, or an easy disposition.
Right.
We don't get ruffled. Our mind must be stable.
Calm. Right.
Calm, yeah. Then the third one is called sindhu, or deep sense of sincerity.
Okay.
If we're not sincere, it's very difficult to reach that pure state of consciousness to realize God.
Right.
The fourth one is called ankura, or initiator of noble actions.
Right.
We have to be aware of our actions, and they always have to be noble.
Right.
And I think we all know what noble actions are.
Absolutely.
Then the fifth one is called Sravana, listening to the words of wisdom.
Right.
Around us, there are so many words that are useless or negative.
Right.
So we listen to the words of wisdom. And then the sixth one is called Sudaya, compassion for all beings.
Right.
And God has compassion. God is love.
Right.
God created all of us out of love. And so we have to emulate that love. So we have compassion for all living things. And the seventh one is called Sulila, or virtuous conduct.
Okay.
And virtuous conduct, of course, I think people know how to live a virtuous life.
Absolutely.
Not to harm others, not to malign or do negative things.
Right. So that's wonderful what these points, these attributes you have talked about. But every religion, every spiritual talks about this. But why is it, Dr. Saab, we would like to know from you that with your vast experience in spreading this message, also self-analyzing yourself also, and being involved with, like you said, you're the president of the World Clergy Association. This message is a universal message, but why is it, do you feel that still we are not being able to know this despite the fact we know this?
You see, we are governed with our senses and desires.
Right.
We do not know how to control our senses and desires. And so our five senses want different types of satisfactions.
Right.
And Kabir Sahib explained this very nicely in saying that they're like five young men. They wake up and they all want their own type of food.
Right.
And they're connoisseurs. The eyes want certain things, the ears and so on. And so because they're all different, they interact differently with the outside world.
Right.
And we are attracted to those because they seem to give us some pleasure. They're beautiful or attractive.
Right.
Or they fulfill some desire that we have. And as long as we're driven by the sense organs and the desires to fulfill them, it will be very difficult to follow a spiritual path. And this is the downfall of a lot of us, that we are living in a sensory world.
Right.
And in order to get to the depth of our being, we have to go beyond the sensory world and go within. Naina jo ulate kabira sai sunamukhari. If you turn your vision from the outward world to the inside, you will see the presence of God. Because God is invisible.
Right.
God is the very inner being of our soul.
Right.
And to find God outside, we have to first find God inside.
Right. So finding God inside, and especially when we talk to the youth about this, that see inside, God is inside, you have to find God inside. And you talked about the sensory allurements which entice us to go outwards, not inside. What would be your message to the youngsters, especially how to start this? Because today there is a major crisis. Earlier, at least, there used to be some deterrence from the religion or spirituality, but today it's something different. Senses are ruling us. So what would be your message with your experience?
Essentially, the message is for the parents to start training, teaching, advising the youth.
Right.
And not when they grow up and be teenagers. I mean, they might be rebellious, but bring them up into a certain value system.
Right.
Whereby they have absorbed or soaked up certain values. And if they do that and grow up with it, then it is likely to manifest later in life.
Okay.
So if parents allow their children to do anything they like, then they're going to grow up with that attitude of freedom, doing as they like.
Right.
Now, a simple example might be you go to a temple, a gurdwara, church, and the children are running around and making noise, and parents don't control them. So this is what the children learn. I can do anything in any place.
Right.
And parents have to be very diligent in bringing up their children.
Right.
And beyond that, the children have to be guided to seek sources where there can be a betterment for their life.
Right.
Like in the school system, or going to the temples, reading good books, keeping good company,
Right.
avoiding drugs, and not only to advise them, but explain to them the reasons.
Right.
Because youth want to have reasons. And if the parents are not qualified enough to give the reason,
Right.
then they should seek someone who is able to give the reason why smoking is bad,
Right.
why alcohol is bad,
Right.
why drugs are bad. Children have to have good, sound reasons.
Right. Now, when you say the parents, of course, need to give reasons, but when it comes to religion, what is happening is that children are going away from religion because they say that they don't get that answers to their whys. Religion is just asking them to do something and not making them understand what is behind that. Do you think that time demands that religious institutions also should now focus on this particular aspect?
I think so. Because I think in a lot of places I have visited and heard about, they say things or they read the scriptures and it's written in a language that they don't understand.
Right.
And so the children are turned off of religion. Religion needs to be explained to children. As we mentioned earlier, our purpose of life.
Right.
If you just read the scripture, recite the banis and so on, and the children, the youth don't understand.
Right, and
they're
that is why they turn away.
They're drifting away.
So we like to discuss in our following programs about actually what is religion, and again, how from religion we can learn a way of life. Thank you very much for this specific, Dr. Saab. Thank you.
Thank you.
ਸੋ ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਜਗੇਸ਼ਵਰ ਦਾਸ ਨੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਹੈ। ਉਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਦੂਸਰੇ ਭਾਗ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਇਹੀ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਜ਼ਰੂਰਤ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜੋ ਅਸੀਂ ਅੱਜ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਧਰਮ ਦਾ ਅਸਲ ਮਕਸਦ ਕੀ ਹੈ, ਨੌਜਵਾਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਇਨਕੁਇਜ਼ਿਟਿਵਨੈਸ ਹੈ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਦੱਸੇ ਉਹ ਐਟਰੀਬਿਊਟਸ ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਜ਼ਰੂਰਤ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਚੰਗੀ ਥਾਟ, ਚੰਗੇ ਐਕਸ਼ਨਸ, ਕਿਸੇ ਦਾ ਬੁਰਾ ਨਾ ਕਰੀਏ, ਭਲਾ ਕਰੀਏ, ਇਹ ਐਟਰੀਬਿਊਟਸ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਲ ਐਟਰੀਬਿਊਟਸ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੰਬਾਈਬ ਕਰਕੇ ਨੌਜਵਾਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਪਾ ਸਕੀਏ ਕਿ ਧਰਮ ਜੋ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਸਿਰਫ ਬਾਣੀ ਪੜ੍ਹਨ ਤੱਕ ਹੀ ਨਾ ਸੀਮਿਤ ਰਹਿ ਜਾਏ, ਕਿਵੇਂ ਉਸ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਉਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਸਿੱਖ ਕੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਜੀਵਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਲਾਗੂ ਕਰਨੀ ਹੈ, ਇਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਫੋਕਸ ਕੀਤਾ, ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਉਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਿਸਥਾਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ।